So I'm a hairstylist and I'm also an educator. In my experience, when I first started doing hair, especially color, it was kind of like I mix something and then like say like a prayer and then hope it would work out. And most of the time, maybe 7 out of 10 times it would, but a lot of times it wouldn't. And I didn't know why. And I think that's why I wanted to do this class, is because you have to be educating color in order to know why things are going wrong, so you can avoid it in the future. So today I want to focus on the types of hair color. Without further ado, types of hair color. There are 2 categories of hair color. There's oxidative hair color and non-oxidative hair color. Oxidative hair color has to be mixed with a developer in order to work, and non-oxidative hair color, you can use it straight out of the tube, apply it directly onto your hair. And when I say oxidation, I mean that it's a chemical reaction that occurs when mixed with hydrogen peroxide. Okay, so the first one is temporary hair color. Temporary hair color is hair color that washes out with one shampoo. So it's like the hairsprays you get from the Halloween store. It's the root touch-up sprays or like purple shampoos. It washes out. This doesn't penetrate the cuticle layer. Our hair is made up of different layers. So the outside layer, that's going to be your cuticle layer. That's like when you see your hair looks like a pine cone. It's made of keratin protein. The inner layer is the cortex, which gives your hair the strength. And then the medulla is not always present in hair. It's sometimes there, sometimes not. This just sits on the outside of the cuticle layer. It doesn't penetrate at all. It just coats it. It cannot cover gray, so there's no gray coverage. Next one I'm going to talk about is gradual hair color. Gradual hair color is basically a metallic hair color. It's basically a rinse. It gradually darkens the hair. The more you use it, the darker your hair is going to get. It usually has like kind of a metallic appearance, and you want to use extreme caution when applying lightener because the hair can smoke because of the chemical reaction. And that's the same thing with henna. So natural hair color, it's made from leaves and bark. It's mixed with water or oil in order to form like a paste. Doesn't have a lot of options as far as shades go. Henna, let's talk about henna for just a second. The reason henna is kind of scary for a hairdresser is because since it's a natural compound, it varies quite considerably as far as how much metals it has in it. I was reading this study about henna, and they said that they had taken like 15 samples from random places in Egypt, and they tested the metal concentration in each one, and it said the metals found in black henna, pretty much every single one that they tested, had a range from 1.75% to 32.1%, and none of that stuff was listed in the ingredients. That's a huge range. That's like 32%. That's almost half of the henna product. That's much higher than what is recommended for any kind of hair dyes. And so those can interact with bleach and cause it to heat up and smoke. So you do not want to ever apply professional products over any kind of natural color because of that reason. Your hair will burn off. So when you're doing a consultation with someone, that's so important that you ask if they've used henna. Have you ever used henna? And they'll say, well, once, like 2 years ago. Okay, well, your hair is down to your waist, so that's still in your hair. Your hair grows about 1/4 to 1/2 inch a month. So if your hair is longer than 6 inches, you got years and years of hair dye on the end. These kind of colors, they do not lift at all. They only deposit color. The next one is semi-permanent. It's still not mixed with any peroxide. It usually lasts like maybe 3 weeks, but I always use a lot of caution when I'm doing any kind of fashion colors or whatever. It will come out the first time you wash it, but it might stain the hair for the rest of your life. And these always show the greatest intensity on very porous hair. And by porous, I mean how much moisture your hair can hold. When you look at someone's hair, the lighter the hair gets, the more porous it is. Again, this penetrates the hair shaft, just stains the cuticle layer. The next one is Demi-color. You use like a processing solution, which is a lower volume than 5. It's a deposit only. It lasts longer than a semi-permanent. And the only difference between a Demi-permanent and a semi-permanent is that Demi-permanent uses a developer. So you need to have a developer in order for it to process. But since it's not a very strong developer, it doesn't lift the hair as much as a permanent color would. So most of the time it fades on tone, meaning that it's not going to show the underlying pigments, most likely a little bit more translucent than a permanent color. And by translucent, I mean you can see through it. Again, small degree of lift, fades on tone, and it has to be mixed with an oxidative solution. And this one will go into, it's not gonna penetrate cortex. Permanent. So this comes in different forms. It comes in a gel, in a cream, or in a liquid. It's the only color that's formulated to lighten hair. When you mix them, you're usually mixing like a 1-to-1 ratio with permanent hair color and developer. It stays on the hair until the hair grows out. So permanent hair color actually goes in the cortex of the hair. So what happens with permanent hair color, there is ammonia in color, and the ammonia's job is to swell the cuticle layer. And if you think of the cuticle layer as like the kind of looks like a pine cone. So the ammonia swells the cuticle layer, opens that cuticle up, and then the hydrogen peroxide, when mixed with the color, creates a chemical reaction, and hydrogen peroxide dissolves the melanin. Melanin is basically these little elements or particles in your hair that give it its color. So the more melanin you have in your hair, the darker your hair is. After the ammonia opens up the cuticle, the hydrogen peroxide goes in and it dissolves that melanin, so it's basically decolorizing it. Then the color molecules go in and they stay in the cuticle. So it basically lifts the hair and then deposits color. And the advantage of using like professional hair color is, there's a bigger selection. If you're going to a salon, you're having a professional do the formulation and the application. So when you're doing it yourself at home, a lot of times people, use these box dyes from the grocery store. So a lot of times these box dyes are formulated for, the darkest hair colors so that they can use it on anyone. And if you don't have that darkest hair color, it's going to be way too much for your hair, and then it's going to fade. So most manufacturers of hair color have a level system, and they can vary up to like 2 shades. So you always have to make sure that you're using that color book and not just, what you may know from another color line to formulate. So because it can vary quite considerably, or the lower the number, the darker the color. So level 1 is going to be like your black, and then it's gradually going to get lighter until level 10. And there's nothing lighter than a level 10. And if color lines make a level 11 or level 12, it doesn't mean it's necessarily lighter. It means it's more translucent. So when you're formulating, you have to remember that the lower the level, the more deposit. So if I'm going to use a color in the level 1, it's going to have the most deposit. The higher I lift it, the less deposit. And as stylists, we can't just, it's not as easy as just picking a color and putting it on someone's hair. There's so many other things that go into it. You have to consider, the natural hair color, the amount of gray, the porosity, and the condition of the hair. So speaking of gray, when you use a color and it's not covering gray, it's because the level is wrong. Gray is very coarse, it's very resistant hair. You always want to formulate darker. A lot of color lines have a gray line, which means it has a double dye load, which means that it's more pigmented. That's why a lot of times the swatches they look very, very dark, but they're actually not going to, the results aren't going to be that dark because it's going on gray hair. So like a level 7 can be like, looking like a level 4 in regular hair color. So it has double dye load because you need more deposit in order to get in and penetrate that cuticle, because it is like coarse, rough hair. Let's talk about hydrogen peroxide. So hydrogen peroxide, water with an extra oxygen atom. And it's basically the catalyst that causes the permanent color to work. So alone, it doesn't really do very much, but it works in tandem with the alkaline solution that's in hair color in order to create a chemical reaction. And it supplies an oxygen gas, I guess, and then that oxygen gas just dissipates the color molecules. Higher volume, the stronger the solution. If you use like a 40 volume with hair color, you're going to lift it about 4 levels, 3 to 4 levels. If you're using 5 volume, it's deposit only. 10 volume, it creates a small amount of lift, kind of slightly opens the cuticle. 20 volume is like the standard for color. So most people will use 20 volume because it opens the cuticle enough and deposits without lifting it so much. Because anytime you lift the hair and lighten the hair, you're not going to get as much deposit. So using like a 40 volume on black hair or with black hair dye is not going to be beneficial for you because it's gonna lift too much and not be able to deposit as dark. So anytime you're going dark, you want to use a low volume developer. Permanent hair color only lifts hair if the hair is virgin hair, which means it's never been dyed before. Permanent hair color cannot lift hair that has been dyed. And the same thing, there's also, so there's permanent hair color, which lifts and deposits, and then there's Highlift hair color. And Highlift hair color is basically the same thing as permanent hair color, but it's going to be stronger. It's going to use like a double 40 processing, and it's going to have a higher amount of ammonia in it, so it lifts lighter. Basically formulated for people who didn't want to use bleach on their hair, and it only works with virgin hair. And when you're working with bleach, it basically, the higher the volume, the faster it works. So it doesn't necessarily lift more, but it lifts faster. I was going through TikTok, and there's a hairdresser on there. Her name is the Headless Hairdresser. If you don't follow, go ahead and follow. So she's got a lot of great content on her page. You know what? One thing I wanted to talk about is the ammonia-free thing. People are like, oh, my hair color doesn't damage because it's ammonia-free. Ammonia-free means that contains ethanolamine. And basically what that is, it's an alternative to ammonia. It's a more natural alternative, and it doesn't open the cuticle layer as much as ammonia. So the hair color can't deposit as much as it would with a ammonia product in it. Therefore, it won't last as long. Anything that says it's ammonia free means it has to contain less than 10% ammonia, according to like the FDA. So if it contains less than 10%, it's ammonia free. Most permanent professional colors contain less than 10%. So most of our colors that we use in the salon is ammonia free.
And like another thing with like the whole ammonia free, it's basically just like Demi-permanent hair color. You know, like they do replace it with those other ingredients that is kind of the same thing, but it's kind of irritating when like color lines come out with these like innovative ways to try to like advertise their hair color for being like safer or more effective or more natural or whatever, but it's like basically the same thing as Demi-permanent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's, yeah, because Demi-permanent, it has a low volume of developer, so, you know, it doesn't open the cuticle quite as much. And you know, the biggest thing in between box dye in a grocery store and professional salon dye is the hairdresser. It's not even so much the dye, it's the professional application, it's the professional recommendation, it's the professional formulation. And you know, and then you get to sit back and relax and have a glass of wine instead of ruining your bathroom. So super resistant gray hair. If it's not covering, like I said, the problem is most likely the level. So you want to go down a level, or you want to use a product within a color line that it has a double dye load, so that it means it's double pigmented, so that it can penetrate that hard, tight cuticle layer. Someone's gray hair at a level 7, I'm not going to use a 7 to color it. I'm going to use a 6.
I honestly feel kind of the same with that. Like anytime I've ever tried covering 100% gray with a level 7 or higher, it is so translucent. There's just not enough pigment in it to be able to cover completely.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to drop the level, you could maybe do like some sort of treatment on their hair if there's any sort of buildup first. Or you could do where they do just the pigment in the tube first and then cover over it on top of that. I've never done that. I feel like it's kind of a waste of product.
I didn't know that. Is that a thing? Like I know you can do like just the developer. Like sometimes you'll just take 10 volume, that just kind of softens the cuticle, and then put the permanent dye. But I never heard of doing the dye first. That's interesting.
Yeah, so with doing the developer actually is what is tightening the cuticle, even though it does like lift and kind of like open it a little bit, I guess, but the ammonia is in the actual tube of pigment, and that's what will actually like blow open the cuticle even more. And it has that extra pigment in it, so that the next formulation will kind of add a little bit extra of pigment. Does that make sense? Am I rambling?
I mean, well, if you think about like if you're that's interesting. Like, but don't you need the developer in order to have that chemical reaction that opens the cuticle?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
But
I've never
I know
tried
like when you're going darker, like anytime you're going to go darker than one or two shades, you have to repigment the hair. So you have to put the colors back into the hair. And we'll talk about that more with color theory. That's what I want to talk about next time is color theory, and then like how to neutralize and then the natural hair types, that categories of hair types that people fall under. But yeah, so that's interesting. Let's see.
Hey, from Scotland. Hello. Wow. You guys are coming from pretty far.
Right? Can you see my comments, or are you only seeing the ones that are on your side?
I'm only seeing the comments from people that are joining my side.
Okay.
But I think
Someone just
people
said
can back and forth
they can what?
from your live to my live so I can see their comments when they comment on my side. But I can't see any of your comments, unfortunately. I feel like they should fix that to where we can see all comments from both sides.
Yeah, that would be good. What else do you have? How do I? Oh, so it's consistency. And someone asked me about the developer, the liquid versus the cream, and I said,
oh yeah, that was me.
What?
It was me, yeah. Because I honestly never knew the difference between the two. It's just a consistency thing, right?
Yeah, it's
and like that totally makes sense to do your actual like colors with liquid to like make them go farther rather than being so thick. Yeah. So I think I might actually like try that one of these times. I do a lot of Shades EQ, and they use the like liquid processing solution, and it does go pretty far when you're coloring with that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying that soon.
Yeah, I like Shades EQ. I almost always tone with permanent color. It's just my preference. I don't use it as a permanent color because I do it with 10 or 5 volume on wet hair, so it makes it demi-permanent. But I feel like I like how opaque it is, unless it's a level 9 or above. If it's a level 9 or above, I'm going to use something that's more translucent. But if it's if it's anything darker, I feel like the more orange you see in the hair, like your perfect blonde, they say, is like the inside of a banana, right? So anything like that color and above, we want to use more of a translucent product because you don't want it to, you want it to stay bright. You don't want to cover that yellow. The yellow is going to be the brightest color, and so you don't want to, mute it. But anything lower, like the darker the yellow, the more opaque your toner should be, I think. So like using more of a permanent color is at least is for my preference. But like the Shades EQ, that stuff is great for toning lighter blondes or something that you don't need so much pigment, I guess. There's a plus side on your side, and you can join both of you. There's a plus side? What does that mean? A plus sign. Huh.
Let's see.
I'm like just fairly new at this kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't see that. I do have a question about ash tones. Is it safe to use on level 9 and above? Ash tones, they are the least reflective out of all the colors on the color wheel. So if you do use an ash to tone with, I would prefer to cocktail different pigments together so it doesn't turn so muddy and so dark, to make it feel like you're just like a mousy brown rather than true blonde. But you could. It just might be darker and ashier than you're expecting.
Well, yeah, that's right. Like yellow, like it says, like the brightest. So when someone wants to be the lightest blonde, you want to have some yellow in there, and it also has a lot to do with porosity. So the more porous your hair is, so the lighter your hair gets, the more porous it is, and porous hair absorbs violet tones very quickly, and it rejects warm tones. So a lot of times you'll be toning someone's hair, and you go, oh my gosh, the highlights are purple, but the rest of the hair is like a nice color, or the opposite of what the highlights are perfect, but the rest of the hair didn't tone. And And it's because the porosity of that light hair is going to absorb that violet way more than it's going to absorb any kind of warm tone. So sometimes mixing that violet with a warm tone is kind of, I mean, it's counteractive, I guess, but it just to kind of dilute it a little bit so it's not so violet. Or using two separate solutions. Like if I'm doing an ombre, which is like meaning it's fading from dark to light, I'm going to use two separate toners because that mid shaft that's like that maybe orange color is going to be a totally separate toner than those ends that are like a yellow. And because they're different colors on the color wheel. So the mid shaft would be a blue in order to neutralize orange, and the ends would be a violet, a more translucent violet in order to neutralize yellow, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's like something I think is so important, is like knowing the color wheel. Like if you're doing color, you need to know the color wheel and how it relates to hair, and that's what we're going to talk about more next time. So, and then we'll go into a whole color theory fun house. So,
yes,
very exciting.
I've got some tricks up my sleeves also on how to use the color wheel to your advantage. But I don't know if you want to get into that this time or not. So I'll keep my secrets if you want me to until next time when we get into the color wheel.
Yeah, exactly. You can email me all the secrets.
Yes, all the secrets. Yeah. Got to keep you guys on the edge of your seats here.
No, you're like, color wheel, sign me up. I can't wait. I got 11 people watching. They're excited.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Go ahead.
What's that? Go ahead. Oh, I just graduated from Cosmo School, and I love you both so much. You've been such great mentors. Oh, thank you. And I am so glad to help. I feel like gatekeeping skills and learning experiences is kind of a dumb concept, so might as well just share the knowledge of everything that I've learned and that you've learned. And
oh yeah, that's me. I'm like, hairdressers unite. Like as soon as I learn a new thing, like I'm like, guess what I learned? And people are like, go away, and I'm like, but I got to tell you about this thing about hair, and they're like, ugh. But I'm very, very excited to share it. And you know, and teaching other people, like it helps me gauge my knowledge, how much I know. Like when people ask questions and like, okay, that's a good question. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to, have that answer next time. That person may not get that answer because they're gone now, but I'll know for the next guy. Let's see. Yep. We'll be talking about this in the next live. Well, this one mostly was just about what types of hair color, but next time I can tell you, this is my live class schedule. Okay, so like the next one is going to be identifying natural hair colors. So there's the different categories that your hair color falls into and what the underlying pigments are, the color wheel, and how to enhance and neutralize that. Also like the different stages of lightening and kind of the rules of natural hair color, like how you make something look more natural. And then the next class is like psychological aspects of hair coloring. So like the hair structure, chemical effects on the hair, color deposit on the hair, melanin and its effects. And then the next one is the porosity of hair, which we have to have for a whole class on because it's so important when you're dyeing your hair, is the porosity. And I think not enough people consider that when dyeing hair. And that is everything.
I got So my porosity, I don't know if you can see it in my live, but the porosity about here down is so trash. This was all supposed to be pink, but this turned to like the darkest purple ever because of the porosity. But it like kind of ombre-ed or whatever, but that's like a good visual of like what can happen if you put something on roots to ends, even if it's visually the same color. The porosity does play a huge part in your formulating your colors and stuff too.
For example, my entire head. Like
what do you use on your hair? Huh? Like what toner is that? That's beautiful.
What toner? I usually just use purple shampoo. I don't like to use like I have used, I'll say this. I use this one. Let's see. Is this the one the Guy Tang, the Dusty Lavender. It's level 10 Dusty Lavender permanent color. It's a beautiful shade. It lasts 2 days, but it's beautiful when it first, comes out. But my hair, I just use lightener. And then I use a purple shampoo sometimes.
Wow.
That's
You get your hair so white. It is, oh, it's beautiful.
thing.
And look, it looks like your hair's what, maybe like a five? Four,
I would say
five?
probably like a 6. It looks really dark in contrast, but when it starts to grow out, it's probably like a 6, maybe 7. Like if I'm in the sun a
Oh,
lot. So the reason I can get my hair so light is because, okay, so one thing I don't think I covered about lighteners is how they work is a lightener. The key to a great lighting, like lightening someone's hair, is saturation and incubation. So when I'm doing my hair, I have to make sure my roots aren't too long, because if they're more than maybe a half inch, 3/4 of an inch, I don't get the heat and I end up with a yellow band. And so when you see people on these like TikToks, they're like bleaching their whole head and they put it like just on everything all in one application, it like makes my heart cry a little bit, because they're going to have hot roots and orange ends or black ends depending on what's on there. So in order to do like a really nice flawless application, you have to start away from the scalp first. Like if I was going to do someone's hair, even if their hair is only 2 inches, you're not going to just put bleach on the entire section of hair, because that heat that is by that half an inch is going to be so much lighter than those ends because of that because of the heat. And lightener works faster, and it gets lighter with, not faster, it gets lighter with heat. So the further it is away from the scalp, the longer it has to be on the hair and the darker it's going to be. So in order to go platinum blonde, you have to do your roots like every time you get about a half inch to 3/4, or else it's going to be yellow. So
nice.
yeah.
Oh, I've got a question over here. Do you use Matrix? What do you think about it? Sometimes the toners fade too quick. How to prevent this? I don't use Matrix. I used it a little bit in hair school because that was one of the color lines that they had in my hair school, but I haven't really ever used it, so I'm not sure. What do you think, Carrie?
Well, so like I mean, I'm not really gonna go into a lot of different brands, because every brand has great color, and if you're using it right, the reason it's fading is not because it's not good color. The reason it's fading is because of the porosity of the hair. So when hair is very porous and the pine cone is open, it can't hold hair color. So you have to put protein back into that hair, because that cuticle layer is made out of protein. So if it's not holding it, you have to do like a protein treatment, put protein back into that hair in order for it to hold that shade. So as far as a color line, I mean, I think, I don't necessarily have an opinion, or I want to give an opinion basically on one specific brand, but it's the problem is probably not necessarily the color, but the porosity of the hair.
Gotcha. Or even like aftercare at home too, well water or overwashing or heat styling a ton and stuff like that too.
Yeah. And then like a
When
lot of
will
times
the next
people's hair fades right at the top, or something, and they're like, why is it so yellow on my just the top layer? It's like because you're washing it with like the hottest water possible, and you're standing in there with the hot water blasting down on your top of your head. So of course it's gonna fade a little faster, plus the sun and the hot tools, and a lot goes into it. When is your next live? I don't know. My next live is gonna be, I want to do it weekly, so it kind of just depends on my work schedule.
do Sunday?
This was kind of just like a trial run, see how it goes. I think it, went okay, and I would like to do it every week. I know a lot of people have Sundays and Mondays off from their salon, so I will create an event, and then post it beforehand. I would like to make it the same day, but I don't know that I'm able to get every single Sunday off. But November 1st, I am going to, a good friend of mine, her hair, she works at the factory in San Diego, and they do a lot of great education there. And she is just like a master stylist with a razor and curly hair. And so November 1st, I'm doing a whole thing with her all about curly hair, which I think is like, people with curly hair have like the most products you've ever seen. So, it's a really good education for that. So that will be a class November 1st. But as far as
Oh,
the
I'm
next one
excited.
is, I'll just check.
I am definitely trash at razor cutting, so I think I will tune into that for sure.
Yeah.
Because
I
it does not
love using the razor, but I swear I cut myself like every time. But she's got great education. It's called Knowledge Destroys Fear. It's her, the company that puts out all that education, and they have some. I mean, I attended like it was like $30 for a 5-hour class. You know, and it was like 3 different haircuts, and it was all razor cutting. It was like a long shag, and then like the curtain bangs, and a pixie cut, and like an A-line, I think. And it was excellent information, excellent education. Like I will always be educating myself. You know, I'll never stop learning until I'm dead. So.
Yep, same. Yep, absolutely. It's so crazy how like much of a like can of worms the hair industry is becoming now. That like knowledge is just, spilling over everywhere on all aspects of hairdressing, hair coloring, hair cutting, styling. Like the whole Denman brush thing with curly hair, that blew up. And it's like, I never knew that. And I've been doing hair for so long, I didn't even know that thing existed.
Yeah.
Like,
so much good information. YouTube, I mean, you have knowledge at your fingertips all the time. And it's this amazing thing about having the internet, you have access to so much more than you ever did. Oh my God, my daughter's birthday party's coming, and we're doing like a Alice in Wonderland theme, and oh my God, Pinterest just, wow, I have so many things I can do with the ideas I found on Pinterest that it's like my whole room I'm looking at right now is just a wreck of stuff from like homemade crafty things. So yeah, it's just,
I love it. That's
endless
awesome.
information. But yeah, so anyway, I was saying with the classes, yeah, so we're going through everything. That's why I don't want to make like a super long class. I just want to have like maybe an hour where we kind of concentrate on one aspect, and then the next week we concentrate on another aspect, and not to overload your brain, because I know sitting through an 8-hour class or a 5-hour class, I'm like, oh, my brain hurts. I don't even know if I retained any of that. And I think it's important to retain that stuff. So just giving you little pieces, little bites. But yeah, and then we'll go into. I mean, I have 12 classes, like written out. I just I kind of just put all this information on paper. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but that's kind of my rough draft. And just so if you guys are interested, you can stick with me and learn about color together. Thank you guys so much for coming and spending your time with me. I know time is very valuable and we don't get it back, and so thank you for spending yours with me. Yeah, I appreciate all the views, and like I said, go to the YouTube channel, go follow the Headless Hairdresser, go to my Instagram, like, share, copy, repeat, whatever, comment, hate, I don't care, as long as you're making comments engaging. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. See you later.
See ya.
Bye-bye.